Well, welcome back for another 7th grade drawing session. We're still continuing to work on the project that we've got going on, which is, of course, a perspective unit. And in this particular session, it looks like we're getting pretty close to finishing up the buildings in our city. However, there's much still left to be done, and we will be filling in a great deal of that during this session. And so, we're simply doing exercises that test the concept and allow us to apply the concept of foreshortening and perspective. All that simply is a term that describes how things appear to get smaller or larger based on their distance from us. So, let's get going on this part of our project again. We're making really good progress, by the way. Okay, so when last we left off, we had completed this particular building, which is one of the more complicated buildings, with its 3 windows in it, or signage. So a lot of this is designed so that you can turn it into signs, same thing here, or windows, or billboards, or advertising of certain sorts. Alright, so we're going to just continue working our way down the street here, and I'm going to bold up some of the work that I've done earlier so it's more visible to the students and on the video. Okay, so if you've been keeping up with the instruction to where I'm at right now, then you're doing a fantastic job, and you will do well on this project. So it's basically about drawing, and so we're just going to keep drawing. Now, in this particular building, we're going to have, I'm going to try to put in 2 of these types of windows, if that's possible. So let's take our ruler and place the top left corner of it on the vanishing point. And then we're going to rotate it up steeply. Okay, the corner is on the vanishing point. I'm going to rotate it up until we find the tops of these windows all barely peeking up from behind our ruler. Now, they may not all line up perfectly, but you can get a pretty good idea what kind of slant you're going to need there. And you might need a sharp pencil when we start working down at this end of the street. Everything gets very small and defined, and very small maneuvers are required. So as you can see, that line right there that I drew is almost right on top of the line above it. I'm going to bold it. You should be able to see it from your vantage point easily on your drawing. Now we're going to do the same operation again, and we're leaving a little bit of space on each end of this window. So we're going to hold our ruler right there on that vanishing point, and we're going to rotate it until we find the bottom of these windows. And they should be pretty easy to find. Now you might have to, we're on this very, very last building, and so you might have to just give it a little bit of space below the windows in order to get the appropriate shape of your window. Okay, here we go. I'm just drawing it so that the side of the window is straight up and down, parallel to the sides of the building. So I'll close that window up. I'll come all the way down here. I'll close it up at the far, far, far end, way down there. That's a long ways away, ladies and gentlemen. So what we're going to do with our next window is going to be, I'm going to say, significantly larger, because we're going to have to put a sign on this particular building of some sort. So why don't we rotate to the top. Now let's go to the bottom of our second window in the first building. That looks about right. Okay, and while we, well, maybe if we go to the top of this, maybe, no, the bottom of the second window, right here. And we're going to place our ruler on the vanishing point. We're going to check our work carefully before we commit to it. Everything down here, if you mark it, is so small it's hard to fix. So we're going to draw another line across the front of the building that should, you know, line up directly below the very slender window, the clear story window we put above it. Now we're going to rotate down, and let's see if we can't find a good spot for this. And I'm going to bet the bottom of these windows, the bottom of this. So see, it's going to be the bottom of the stained glass window lines up with these windows. Okay, we'll line it all up, and then we're going to carefully draw another line. Okay, like this. Now my line up here above it, it needs to be touched up a bit, I can tell. Now we're working at very small scale right now, I think you would agree. So we're going to turn our ruler perfectly straight up and down and find the edge of the window that's just above the one we're drawing. Should be straight up and down, vertical, parallel to the side of the buildings, just like the other one at the far end. Straight up and down, parallel to the sides of the buildings, parallel to the side of the paper. Okay, so that window is way off in the distance there, I might say. And so now we've got to put in, this is like a city hall or a rather large building. So it would be appropriate that we might want to use a larger door for when there's ceremonies such as marriages or courthouse days, those types of things going on. So we should be able to, what I'm going to do is I want to make a double door like this, and then we're going to put an archway, I think, around it. So we'll rotate up to, let's see, we're going to have to make a mark about right here, I suppose, on the front of our building, way down here. Then on the vanishing point, we're going to find that dot. And this is going to be a rather large door, so we're going to, it's not quite as wide as the window above it. And then make sure that halfway across it, we're going to make another little marking. It will look like a capital letter T, but it will be tilty on top. Like this. And then, all we've got to do is draw lines from the ends of it, so it appears to be as though it's almost like a capital letter E turned up on its end. Okay, oh, that looks pretty official way down there. So what I'd like to do next with this is kind of make an arched doorway out of it, similar to this. So if we put a dot almost under the window, almost touching it but not quite, and then we can just draw like a curve that touches the corner of the door and hits the dot. And then we want to do the same thing but in reverse over here. Hits the corner of the door, comes down like this, and because it is foreshortened, meaning it's turned in space a bit, it will also look unusually, it's not the exact same curve as the other one was. Okay, now our street and our buildings are pretty well done. Anything else we need to do with them, like curtains and signage, that will be done in the next step. Well, a subsequent step, not the next step. The next step is where these drawings, which are really quite good most of the time, start going terribly wrong. And so that's where we start putting in the sidewalks. And so we're going to go ahead and start that, and we're going to start on the right side of the street first. And we're going to measure out from the corner of our drawing, right here, the lower right hand corner, we're going to measure out 9 centimeters. So we're going to lay the ruler on the 9, and we're going to put a dot over here at the bottom of our paper. Now that's our sidewalk, how wide our sidewalk is going to be. If we take the top left corner of our ruler and place it on the vanishing point and place it on the dot down here at the bottom of the paper we just made, we're going to draw one continuous line. Parts of it need to be erased, so you have to draw it lightly. I will draw more boldly because I have to make it visible to you on the projection screen or on the camera. So you should have something like that. Goes from the vanishing point all the way to here. Now, here's where it gets tricky. We want to make a mark just a little bit farther away from that. Let's see, if I had to measure it, I would say it's 1 centimeter. So we're going to, from the edge of our sidewalk we just made, we're going to measure off 1 centimeter. We're going to put a dot right here. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did a moment ago. From the vanishing point to this next dot 1 centimeter away. Hold it down firmly. And I'm going to draw bold, but you should draw lightly so you can erase. You can always darken it, but lightening it up is sometimes very problematic. Okay, now when we start doing our sidewalks, what we've got to do is make sure that they appear to be horizontal. And that means they need to stick straight out sideways from the building rather than tilting funny at strange angles. And that is very common in this particular project, and I'm not real sure why, but I believe it's something that's in the middle school age level psychology. So everywhere we have a break in between the buildings, let's go ahead and just make a mark here, and on the other side of the alleyway, and on the other side of the alleyway here. So everywhere we have a break between the buildings, I'm going to put a little mark like this, and that's going to help us figure out where to put our sidewalk in. Okay, so having done that, this is kind of complicated. We need to hold the ruler. If you put it right here at the corner of the bottom of the building, place your ruler up against it, it needs to be perfectly horizontal. The tendency, strangely, for students is to tilt it. They don't think it looks right, but it's got to be perfectly horizontal or the illusion won't work. So we're going to hold the pencil there at the bottom, put the ruler up against it, make sure it's horizontal, parallel with the bottom of the paper, and then we're going to draw our line. It goes to the, this is the edge of the sidewalk, and then we're going to turn it 90 degrees so you can step down into the street, and this is the curve. So it goes across the sidewalk and down into the street. It's very simple. But if you tilt it like this, it will look really strange. So it goes straight out, straight down. Okay. Now we're going to repeat this process on down the street. So we're going to go to the next bottom of a building. Put your pencil right there, put the ruler up against it. It should be level with this line. So if we put our pencil right there, amazingly, this line right here shows up just above it. So we're going to project it across the sidewalk, straight sideways, and then straight down, vertical. Now what we've created is a space between these two buildings that you can drive in and out of. So we're going to remove this material, erase it, and now we can see the other side of our sidewalk. This part we can't see where it's been cut away, but right here it makes a bit of a ramp down into the street. Now this sidewalk seems to be rather thick, however, it's going to be fine. So now you could drive your car into this area. If there were water, it could flow out into the streets and then into the street drains like it's supposed to. So we're going to continue this process all the way down the street, and then we're going to continue it on the other side of the street as well. So you put your pencil right here on the bottom corner of the building, put your ruler up against it. It should be straight sideways, horizontal, parallel to the bottom of the paper. If it tilts, it will look very strange. Project a line out to the edge of the sidewalk. Rotate the ruler 90 degrees, straight up and down vertical. And then it must go down the curb and onto the street level. Repeat this again. Pencil right here. Ruler against the pencil. If you've done this line right, it will be just above the ruler. It needs to be straight sideways, horizontal, parallel to both the bottom and the top of the paper. We'll continue our line. Hits the edge of the sidewalk. We rotate it 90 degrees, straight down. Now the same way we did this cutaway right here, we'll deal with this cutaway right here. So we carefully erase the lines away. I'm going to use my little duster brush. And then this triangle that we've made, the little ramp, will appear right over in here. So from the bottom of this curb back to the corner of the building again, just like you see me doing. Alright, so once again, now we have that division between the buildings, and it slopes downward, and you can walk out of the sidewalk and step down into the street. It's really quite simple when you know how it's done. We're going to continue doing this. We're going to find that corner of the building with the 3 roofs and lay our ruler up against that. It's going to be straight sideways and then straight down. Horizontal, then vertical. So horizontal, rotate your ruler 90 degrees, and then straight down, vertical. Now as we're getting farther away, you can see the sidewalk appears to get smaller as it gets farther from us. And that's part of the whole illusion we're attempting to create. The last one on this side of the street, we're going to hold our pencil there. If it's sharp, it works better. Put the ruler up against it. It should be straight sideways. In fact, you should be able to see a little bit of the line behind it that indicates the alleyway. We simply draw it across the sidewalk, rotate the ruler, and with the tiniest vertical mark, draw the curve in way down there. Carefully erase this away. Alright, I'm going to give it a little bit of a dusting. And then we're going to, just like we did with this one and this one, we'll do again down here. So perspective is that idea, that illusion that makes objects and makes artwork appear to be three-dimensional. Like it really goes, like you're walking down the street, looking down the street as you go. Well, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to clean up my markings down here at the bottom of the picture because I really don't want them to be a permanent part of the picture. And I'm going to just extend that carefully. Now, as I recall, we went 9 and then 1 more. So we can do the same thing here. We're going to find the bottom left corner of our picture, and we're going to make a measurement at 9, and we're going to put a dot below the 9. And do the same thing again at the 10, because this way we'll get symmetry. This side will almost perfectly match this side. So, at 9 and at 10 centimeters down there. Now we may have to work backhanded a bit, but that goes with the territory sometimes. So, but in this case, we're going to put the top right corner of our ruler on the vanishing point. We're going to find our dot that's 9 centimeters away. Maybe you put a 9 there. That would be helpful. So from the vanishing point to the dot, it says 9. I'm drawing it pretty heavy. You should try to draw light. You may have to erase lines. Okay, you should have something like that. And very much like we did across the street right here, you do the same thing again. So in this case, we're going to take the top left corner of the ruler, place on the vanishing point, find dot that's 10 centimeters away. I'm going to hold it down firmly, and then from the vanishing point to the dot to the front of the picture where we are standing from our viewpoint. And you should have something similar to this. We'll simply do precisely what we did over here, with the exception of in front of our parking garage or our auto barn, we're going to have two little pieces of sidewalk there. So this side will be slightly more complex. I'm going to erase this portion out. And if you're keeping up with the instruction at the pace that I'm putting it out there right now, then you're doing a fantastic job. This is somewhat of a complex idea. So, here we go. We're going to put our pencil right here in the corner of the building. We put our ruler up against it. There we go. Ruler up against it. It needs to be perfectly horizontal, straight sideways, parallel to the tops and bottoms of the paper. Comes across the sidewalk. And then when it gets to the end of the sidewalk, we can turn 90 degrees, and it goes, the curb goes down into the street. It's very simple. If you tilt it like this, it will look unnatural. This is what it would look like if you tilted it. And that doesn't look right. And a lot of times people put tilts right here also, and it just doesn't look right. So you have to kind of abide by the laws of perspective, strangely, if you want it to come out looking like it has a sense of three-dimensionality to it. We're going to continue this on down the street. So we take our pencil, the way I've seen a lot of people do it, hold your ruler up against it. If this line is horizontal, we can simply index off that line. I'm going to go straight across the street, across the sidewalk. When we get to the end of the sidewalk, look at what we've done. Rotate our ruler 90 degrees, should be straight down, vertical. So we've pretty much recreated what we have over here, right here. So now we simply have to erase out a portion of the sidewalk, which would be cut away. And just like we did over here, from the corner of the street back to the building, we'll put in a tilted line representing where the alleyway is elevated up above the street, which is good when you have to get rainwater out of the alleyway and get it into the storm drains. Okay, now this seems like a tedious process, meaning it seems like it takes a long time, and it really does at first. If you once you learn this, you can make drawings like this rather quickly. Pencil on the corner of the building, ruler, perfectly sideways, horizontal, parallel to the top and the bottom of the paper. Just draw it across the sidewalk, rotate 90 degrees, and straight up and down, vertical. And that will show us where the end of the sidewalk is out in front of this building. Now this is the part where it starts to get somewhat tricky because we have to do multiple cutaways, so it appears as though we can drive up into the fire station or the auto repair place or whatever this building is in your picture. So I'm going to put my pencil right there, slide my ruler against it. If I've done it right, this line should be straight. If I haven't, this one needs to be straight. Straight across the sidewalk, corner of the sidewalk, and then straight down 90 degrees. And then we carefully erase away, replace the spot in between the sidewalks. Now I've seen a lot of themes over these for these projects over the years. Festivals are pretty common. Natural disasters are pretty common. Whatever the current natural disaster seems to be. Elections, they're pretty common too. So I've seen a lot of interesting themes on these particular pieces of artwork over the years. Now here's where it gets tricky. We need to put a chunk of sidewalk right here, another one here, another one here, and another one down here by our donut shop or music store. It's a flat roof building. So the same procedure is going to apply each time. It's just we're doing more of them. So you put your pencil here, slide it up against the bottom of that corner of the garage door, and draw a line that goes across the sidewalk. Turn the ruler 90 degrees, straight down, and as you can see, it looks like there's a little piece of sidewalk right there. Now we'll be able to drive up when we do the next one. Okay, so we'll just keep this same idea going. We'll put our pencil here on the corner, slide the ruler against it. It needs to be straight sideways, horizontal, parallel to the bottom and the top of the paper. Now in this case, when it hits the side, turn it 90 degrees, straight down, just that tiniest little mark. And now we're going to erase all of this away so we don't have to drive over the sidewalk to get into the auto repair place. Okay, now we'll dust it away. And the same way we did this triangle, we have one over here. So we'll tilt our ruler at an angle and draw in the portion of the sidewalk that's been revealed to us since this part was cut away. Now the sidewalk chunks are getting smaller, as you notice, as they get farther down the street, and that really bumps up the illusion of three-dimensionality in this. So we're going to go to this line right here where the far end of the auto place, the auto repair store, is at, having trouble, and we're going to slide our ruler up against that. So it's got to be right there on that corner. And of course, like every other piece of sidewalk in this town, straight sideways, when it hits the edge of the curb, it goes 90 degrees and straight down into the street. I'm going to erase that little dot. Really got aggressive there with the pencil when I put it down on that corner. And I may have to touch up the work. Okay. So, as you can see, we're working our way down the street quite quickly. We're going to do one more piece of sidewalk cutaway, and that will be here at the flat roof building. So we find our corner of our building, push the ruler up against it, make sure it's perfectly sideways, horizontal, then draw a horizontal line across the sidewalk, and then turn 90 degrees, put it on the curb, and then erase the portion out the middle between the buildings. And then we'll just connect the triangle together. And that's about as easy as it gets. Now you may need to go back and touch up some of your lines and bold some things so that they show up clearly to you. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is we're going to, and this might be one of the last things we get done in this session, and then in the next session we'll complete most of the drawing and start doing a lot of our detailing work at that time. So I'd like to start thinking about the stripes that go down the middle of the road here. And in order to make that look convincing, they really need to be in the middle of the road. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to place the top left corner of our ruler on the vanishing point, and it's going to have to be perfectly straight up and down. And at the bottom of the picture, we're going to make a dot. Okay, that should be halfway across the picture. I got to erase some things. So we should have a dot halfway across. We're going to take our metric scale and we're going to place 1/2 centimeter. We're going to put the dot halfway between the 0 and the 1. And we're going to make another dot at the 0. We're going to make another dot at the 1. Then we're going to erase the dot out of the middle. So if you've done this correctly, there should be a 1 centimeter, the space we just created should be 1 centimeter wide. Alright, so we're going to make another dot. We're going to go to the left one, at the 0, make a dot. We're going to move over here to the right one, put the 0 on the right one, and below the 1, make a dot. Okay, now that's going to be important. So we started out by putting a dot in the middle, and then we measured off a 1/2 centimeter in each direction, made a dot, and erased. Then we went 1 centimeter from here to here. We went 1 centimeter from here to here. If we did our math right, it should be 3 centimeters. And as you can see, that's pretty close. Okay, now, all of that trouble we went through was simply to line these up so that we can make convincing stripes down the middle of our street. So being right-handed, I'm going to work from the right to the left, clockwise. So put the top left corner of the ruler on the vanishing point and orient it towards the first dot. I'll make a line. We're going to do the same thing. Keep it on the vanishing point, rotate to the left until we find the second dot. Make a line. Hold that ruler down. I'm going to do the same thing yet again. Rotate to the left on the vanishing point. Hold the ruler down. And then one more time. Ruler on the vanishing point. Rotate it to the left. Find your dot. And then make your mark. Okay, so what we should have then is a town with buildings and sidewalks, alleyways, and 2 stripes down the middle of the street. And so this is where I think we're going to have to just think about cleaning it up a little bit here for today, maybe bolding a few more lines, and then in the next session we will draw in the negative space in the background, and then we will start detailing it for several more days after that. And that will be the end of the drawing unit by then. So I'm going to spend some time going around and bolding my lines. Some of them are lighter than others. And if you're got some smears and erasing marks, that would be a good time to do this as well. So you can never really be too, with drawings, if you get too loose with them, they start to get really messy, and as a result of that, you know, they just don't look as crisp as they should. They don't have that quality like they're a piece of artwork. They start looking like they're doodles or just idea papers rather than actual legit pieces of artwork. And when we put the colors on this is going to be fantastic. And this is kind of exactly what you would be experiencing if you were in the visual arts classroom, in what I call the physical classroom, where a lot of teachers have been over the last few weeks calling it. I'm just going to keep bolding lines and tightening up my drawing. And you should too. If you see somebody that really knows, you can learn a great deal by simply watching people who know what they're doing work, and then try to, you know, mirror what they're doing a lot of the time. And it really does work. When I was learning to play golf, I would just watch other people play golf. And the people who were good at it, man, I decided I was going to do what they were doing. And the people who were terrible at it, I watched what they did too. And I wanted to make sure that I avoided that in my own game. Now, you know, golf is supposed to be fun too. But, you know, nothing is more frustrating than wanting something to come out right, and then it just comes out a mess. So the solution to that many times is simply just working in a careful manner, slow and steady, and not really getting into a frazzled, panicked rush about things. That's what causes your projects to sometimes end up not really like you thought they would come out. I think I'm going to make this a different kind of a little bit of a door there, with a little bit of a border to it maybe there. Maybe even like this. So this is kind of a good time to work out some ideas too. When you're cleaning things up, people tend to find certain ideas that they gravitate toward when they do that. So I'm going to, there we go. Well, that says that's the end of our session. So I'm going to finish up the door on one right here, and then we're going to call it a session of 7th grade art, and we will get back together again in our next session, and we will continue on with what is turning out to be a very successful visual arts project. In fact, I might put a little, I know what I'm going to do with some of this already. It's starting to appear in my head what's going to happen in my city. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well, thank you for your attention, and we will get together again in the next session. Have a nice day.